I think we're on.
We're live.
And we're together, which is kind of cool.
I know, so it sounds like a special one because Mom's in St. Augustine, Florida with me, so we get to do this one together.
Yeah, that's really special.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, I want Erin. She's definitely half of the team anyway. She's also a huge part of the inspiration to do what we're doing, and she keeps things running and going. And I want you, I'm not the only face of this team. There are several of us, and Erin, of course, is an integral part. So I'm really happy to do this with you today, Erin. Thank you. Yeah, and so just a couple weeks ago, we were at the Wise Traditions Conference, the annual conference of the Weston A. Price Foundation. And we've already talked a little bit about that, so I'm not going to rehash it. But one of the cool things that we did when there was that I participated in a panel discussion about it was kind of the practical side of feeding your family well, and how do you actually do it, and what about this and what about that. And so Erin and I thought that it would be fun and maybe very helpful to some of you if we went over that together. Now, our answers in the panel discussion will be broadcast on the Wise Traditions podcast with Hilda Labrada Gore. It's not out yet. I'm not sure when it will be coming out. But that was answers from 4 different people, and we didn't all answer the same questions. So we thought, let's go over those questions together today. And Erin has a lot of input aside from what I might have to say. So it'll be interesting to see what you come up with for answers as well.
I know, well, it's a little bit weird because I'm in a weird position because I actually don't like to cook. so I'm in a super weird place where like Mom is like she's like the most amazing, cook ever, but it's just cooking just was never my thing. For me, it feels like, I know it's silly to say, but for me, it almost feels like it's like a waste of my time because I'd rather be like sitting and working and doing something else. That I don't like to cook, but nutrition and health and wellness, and from a biblical perspective, is really important to me nonetheless. So it always has been. So even though I'm not the cook in our family, I still make sure that I cook healthy food and have healthy food available. So, but yeah, nutrition and health is very, very important to me. Obviously, I got that from my mom, and from all the years of watching her learn and sitting under her, and then, exploring on my own as I became an adult. And so this will be interesting.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And also we want to show you, so usually Mom gets to show you her favorite product, but today I get to show you my favorite product, and mine is Pluck. It really is my absolute favorite. Like, we put this on everything. We put it on eggs for breakfast. I'll put it on if you butter your bread, sprinkle it on your bread, put it on vegetables, put it on meat, chicken, ground beef, everything. So this is like, we have a saying when my husband Kevin is cooking and I pop around the corner and I say, "Did you put Pluck on it?" And he knows that we have to put it on everything. So this is truly one of my absolute favorite products, and it's an organ-based seasoning. So not only is it just a really delicious all-purpose seasoning that you can use for pretty much everything, but it's really, really nutritious and healthy too, because it has it has liver and heart and kidney and spleen and pancreas. So it's got some really good nutrition, and we know that organ meats are one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there. So you might think, well, what is a little bit of, a little pinch of Pluck going to do? But if you're using it on a regular basis, that's actually a lot of extra nutrition that you're getting in your diet. So it's a great way for us to get a little bit of extra oomph, because like I said, I'm not the cook, so I'm not going to be cooking organs. She does. But I'm not going to be cooking organs. But although I did try tongue that one time you cooked it this summer for our women's retreat. And it was actually pretty good.
Yeah. It was,
but am I going to cook tongue? Am I going to cook tongue? No.
Probably not.
I'm not going to go to the butcher shop and get tongue and cook it. I'm just not. So no. And so my I'm like, any way we can throw nutrition in a different perspective, a different way than me having to actually go find it and cook it like that, then is the way to go. But that's my favorite product.
it's definitely one of mine as well.
Mhm.
So, and I have a lot of admiration and respect for Jamie,
Mhm.
whose company it is and who formulated
Yep.
now 2 different seasonings and just an organ meat
Mhm.
package as well. So you have options. I like the original the most, but also zesty garlic.
Yeah, zesty garlic is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. What question should we start with first?
I think that this is a good one.
Okay. All right. So this question is, what motivated you to initially roll up your sleeves and get started and do this healthy eating thing?
And for me, of course, it's because I understood that in order to have a healthy family, I intuitively understood that we needed to eat God-given foods. I didn't think of it that way exactly, but I knew that we needed to have clean food and food that actually still had nutrients in it, unlike processed food. So I wanted a healthy family. I wanted to be healthy myself. I had seen what my mother's dietary changes had done for her years before. So that was my starting point.
Yeah. And then for me, obviously I grew up eating really healthy. So for me, it was kind of a continuation of that, except that, I had like a stint through college and a little bit out of college where I was eating I was eating like the food on campus and super, just had a really stressful life. So I wasn't really eating healthy probably in that first, early 20s. And then just kind of got back on and was ready to take charge of my health. So yeah.
You still were getting raw milk. I was
Yep.
sending milk down and
because I was I was babysitting. I would babysit for Sarah Pope.
That's right, the healthy home economist.
Yep, I would babysit her boys, and then get milk, and then get raw milk from her, and sometimes raw milk cheese. So and I know you always sent me like sauerkraut and things like that. My roommates were always like, "What in the world is in this refrigerator?" So I had all the weird stuff. In my fridge.
Yeah. And now it's kind of normal stuff. Now it's the cool stuff.
Yeah, now people think it's really cool. And I'm like, we were doing that a long time ago before it was really cool.
Like the kombucha too.
We're the weird people that were doing it forever ago.
Who knew? We were actually cool. We were just ahead of our time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let's see. Here's a good one. So, how do you feed your kids this way, the ancestrally nutrient-dense food, when it feels like they're inundated with junk food and other foods that aren't good for them?
Well, one of the things that I always felt was important was just to start the children off with good food. Mm-hmm. Now, you and Taylor were young. You weren't babies when we started to eat this way, but I'd always fed you pretty well. But we really did switch to an intentionally nutrient-dense diet by the time, this really came about after Peter was born, and Peter is 25 now. I have a hard time keeping track.
26.
I think he's going to be 26 in February. Okay. I don't know. He was born in 97, so whatever that is. Okay, anyway, after he was born, and he was born with gut damage, we were using a lot of soy for protein.
We hated that. We were so glad. Taylor and I were so glad when Mom decided soy wasn't good for us anymore.
I was relieved too, because it also was expensive. But we did a lot of soy protein shakes and soy protein this and soy protein that. Fortunately, at least we were also eating eggs and drinking raw milk and using butter, but I was teetering on that hallelujah diet, which is a vegan diet. And so, we did a lot of soy, and Peter was born with gut damage that I had to figure out before internet, before GAPS diet, before Weston A. Price Foundation. It took me a long time to get it figured out, actually. But by then we did make the full switch. So my kids never had candies and sodas, really. It's not that they never, ever were allowed to have a piece of candy or a soda. You guys weren't eating candy corn and Snickers and stuff like that.
No. But you let us have the treat like at potlucks and things like that. Like we were allowed to have one can of soda at a potluck.
Usually split if you were little.
We usually had to share it. And we were allowed to have like a dessert, so we were allowed to, you were allowed us to like have foods that weren't good for us, but just it wasn't very often.
And that was after you'd had the good food.
Mhm.
So part of the answer to the question is you train your children to eat the good stuff first.
Mhm.
And then occasionally allow a treat. And of course, I was creating adaptations that were healthy from unhealthy foods. So you still could feel like you were having some wonderful thing that everybody else had, but you would have a better version of it. And occasionally, like even if we did trick or treating, I would let you guys choose maybe 3 somethings. And I might say it can't be this or that, but anything else. And then the rest I would buy back. So you still could have a treat. You were not totally deprived. And I think that's really important because I've watched my own kids and others who, when they're denied all access to regular, normal food that isn't good for you, they rebel. Oftentimes kids rebel. And I recognized that that was a problem and I didn't want it in you children. So I made ways for you to always have treats. Not always. You didn't have sugar every day.
No,
A
but we
treat is a
often had like snacks that were, like healthy variations of, things that like, we always had those like granola bars. We liked those. We always loved those, the granola bars.
Yeah.
And I think we used to make fruit roll up, didn't we?
We did. I would dehydrate fruit.
Yep. So those were really good. And
we had a lot of smoothies with real fruit and real cream and an extra egg yolk. So it was like having a milkshake.
Yep. Oh, we made ice cream a lot.
Oh, yes,
that was good. Yeah, we made lots of ice
Yeah.
cream because when you are in control of what you put in it, then you can put as little or as much sugar as you want. So we could use our fresh, raw honey and
fresh raw milk.
Fresh raw milk. Oh, we used to eat a lot of ice cream. Ice cream was good.
Yeah, it was. It was actually nutritious and it wasn't high sugar. We used honey or maple syrup. And so like you said, we could control the amount of sweetness, but it actually was good for you. So yeah, so that's one thing that, making sure that your kids are eating first and primarily the really good nutritious foods, and then allowing and creating treats so that nobody feels deprived. And even when we would go to a party, or a potluck or something where I knew there was going to be a lot of yuck, I usually didn't let you guys go in hungry. So that you would be grabbing at everything and, just hungry and wanting to eat things that weren't good for you. If you went into a situation with at least some satiety from maybe eggs or pemmican or something, that I used to make pemmican. Yeah. So you weren't starving and grabbing for everything. And that was always very helpful. Yeah. So there are some of those kinds of tricks that I think are really helpful. I didn't really have anybody around me. I had no one around me who was feeding their family really well.
Yeah, we were pretty much the only ones.
Yeah. Until we started Weston A. Price, until we started a chapter and started meeting people, then things began to change, and that was really good. But yeah, we had to deal with all of the same things everybody else does and did. Yeah.
All right, let's see. So here's the next one. It's how do you actually do it? How do you make the time and develop the rhythms in our busy lives to feed your family these good foods, this healthy, biblical way that God intended us to eat?
And the main answer to that is do everything in volume. So I didn't just make a pot of soup. I made a pot of soup. I didn't just do a roast, and even still, I don't just cook a chicken. I cook a couple of chickens, sometimes 3 or 4. And then you have your primary meal, and then you have leftovers to make more from. So it makes the meal prep easier because you've already got a lot of it done. And of course, then with something like poultry, I'm collecting the bones and making stock. And again, in volume. So I did everything in volume. But I also like to do food prep. I am not a good planner. I'm not one never was, who would write out a meal plan for the week. I would have a general idea and still do. I make sure that I have every staple that I need at any given time in my refrigerator and in the pantry, so that I know maybe I'm going to have fish one day, maybe it's seafood chowder, and we're going to have a roast one day, and we're going to do chicken a couple of days in different ways. I have a general idea and I have all of the staples. But the other thing that I do even more now than I ever did before is I prep ahead of time. So you may have heard me in other videos talk about making mirepoix. Mirepoix is just a classic preparation of 2 parts onion, 1 part carrot, 1 part celery, diced. And in most professional kitchens, you've got the mirepoix made up ahead of time. I add garlic to mine because I almost never don't use garlic. I'm a fan of garlic. So I do that chopping, and now I use a food processor, usually, not always. But I'll dice all of that up. Again, it's 2 parts onion, 1 part carrot, 1 part celery. And I have the celery. I actually have lovage growing out on my deck. And so I just pick that. But I also do 2 cloves of garlic per onion. And I dice that all up in the food processor, which is faster and easier. And then I simmer it in ghee. Then I can put it in the refrigerator in quart jars. And whether I'm doing a roast or a soup or anything, a scrambled eggs even, all I have to do is pull out my jar and toss it in the pan instead of wasting 15 to 30 minutes prepping. It's all done. I do the same thing with anti-inflammatory healing herbs of garlic, turmeric, and ginger, and freshly ground black pepper. I grate the ginger, I grate the turmeric, and I mince the garlic. And then again, I toss that into ghee and I simmer it for 10 minutes and put some freshly ground black pepper in it. And I stick that in a jar in the refrigerator. And then if I want to have some Asian influenced meal, or I just have chicken stock and I want it to be what Dad eats on his way out the door because it's good for him. Healing breakfast soup is one of those recipes that we have on our YouTube channel and on our blog, I believe. Anyway, there again, it's just a ready-made seasoning. It's all done. I don't have to chop again. It's just done and I can scoop out. So anything that you can prep ahead, I prep ahead. And I try to prep out for about 2 weeks at a time. And that makes everything much faster and easier. And the other secret that I think is important is keep it simple. You don't have to make gourmet meals every day. I actually hardly ever make a really big, difficult meal. I do it from time to time and enjoy it. But day in and day out, our meals are pretty simple. You can make really, really delicious, good, nutritious food, and it's exciting, but it still is simple and easy, like frittata that we had for breakfast the other day.
That was really good. Breakfast has been off the chain since Mom has been here. Kevin's going to be really sad.
Well, it's, I enjoy making breakfast.
Yeah,
so, and this morning it was just omelets.
Breakfast.
You hate making anything.
I do.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm like a one pot, one and done kind of person. If I can cook something and it takes 1 pot and I'm not making anything dirty, because I washed a lot of dishes in my life. So if I can just use 1 pot, then one and done, then we're good.
And there's a whole lot that you can do with 1 pot, especially if you have the prep done ahead of time and it's in the refrigerator. I made a really simple meal the week before last that was fantastic. And everybody, our whole family was actually at the table together, not all the kids, because you weren't there. Anyway, I'd invited our son Peter and his wife over for dinner, and we'd all had a really busy day, but I wanted us to sit at the table together. And again, I just opened the fridge and I looked in the pantry and I thought, okay, what am I going to make that's going to be delicious, nutritious, and quick and easy? And I just grabbed oh man, I was supposed to share this. I was supposed to jot it down and give it to Jess. So note to self, tell Jess to watch this video. It was a pound of ground beef. It was a quart of chicken stock.
Mhm.
It was about 2 tablespoons of Redmond garlic seasoning. Man, that stuff is
good. That stuff is really good too. Yeah.
That was it. And I served it over rice. Oh, I added some black beans,
Mhm.
a can of black beans that I rinsed to get the starch away. And 1 cup of tomato puree. I had gone out to the garden and harvested a bunch of late tomatoes. And so I added 1 cup of tomato puree.
Mhm.
And man, was that good. Served over rice with just a simple salad. And of course, again, meal prepping. I had salad dressing made because I always have mayonnaise and salad dressing made
Mhm.
to last for about 2 weeks. So, man, I had a whole meal done in about 15 minutes
Mhm.
and everybody sat down and raved
really
about it. Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
write that recipe
Yeah, you
up.
should write
Remind
it
me.
down. Yeah. Kevin and I, we don't have any kids, so it's just us and our 2 cats who are our cat children. But it's just the 2 of us, and we both work a lot and are really busy and really involved in all kinds of things. So, for us to make the time, so I even though I don't like to cook, obviously I do cook. But yeah, we keep things really simple. So we always have chicken, whether that's like chicken thighs, like we really like chicken thighs. They're so easy. We love
and they're
chicken
moist.
thighs. Yep. With the skin on, they're so good and easy to make. So chicken thighs, we always have like a whole chicken or chicken breast in the refrigerator and in the freezer. We always have ground beef. So chicken and ground beef are kind of our go-tos because it's also budget, it's budget friendly for us. So that's always in our refrigerator and in our freezer. And then we always have eggs because that's such an affordable source of protein. So I am excited because I just found a friend of mine who she has chickens in her backyard. And so I got to go visit her yesterday. And so she's wonderful. Yeah, so she's my new egg dealer.
And a side note, lest you think that eating right is not affordable and doing things for yourself is not doable, this woman harvests about 30 gallons a year of honey from her own hives. And we harvested about 2 pounds of green beans that were just hanging there at the end of the season. And, I don't remember what else, but she has about a dozen chickens and on a postage stamp of a yard.
Teeny tiny yard.
And it's beautiful. It doesn't smell. It's beautiful. So even if you have just a little tiny bit of space, you can grow food. Just saying.
Yeah. Now I live in a condo, so I have tried growing food on the porch. I had a cucumber plant that looked like it was going to make it.
You might have
it didn't. We don't have enough sunshine on our porch. So
even though they live in Florida,
I know. So I'm working on it. But I also, when during all the lockdowns and stuff, I had told my neighbors, I was like, if the world ends, I'm going to put chickens and grow a garden outside. So just be ready.
Your sun porch could hold chickens.
Maybe. But yeah, so I always have eggs because they're very affordable. So it's such a great affordable source of energy. We eat eggs for breakfast every day. And then I always hard boil eggs. So it's like an quick and easy snack to grab as we're going out the door or just need something. So
that, by the way, is a great thing to remember. We aren't talking about snack foods, but hard boiled eggs are good for snacks and travel.
Yep. Yeah, I love hard boiled eggs. I just really like eggs a lot. And then with a pinch of Redmond sea salt. Oh, so good. And Pluck. But I do like a pinch of Redmond and a pinch of Pluck. Although Pluck already has Redmond in it. But but we love hard boiled eggs. We keep those in the fridge all the time. And then just the vegetables, whatever seasonal vegetables. I love broccoli. Broccoli's I'll take broccoli over candy any day. Love broccoli. So just, vegetables, squash, kind of whatever is in season. And so, I mean, really, if you have a protein and you have a vegetable, and we always have butter, we always have ghee, we always have really good olive oil, we always have, and coconut oil I always use a ton of that. I would put it on after, the food's all done. I still I love to top our food with ghee to get some extra nutrition. And then using the seasonings like Pluck and using the black garlic from Simply Ghee. I put that on everything. They have a really good turmeric powder. So if you don't want to mess with doing your own turmeric, they have a really good turmeric powder that I put in everything too. So I tried to, what we do cook is very simple. And I always try to make sure that it has packs a punch of nutrients in it. So it always has good fat and good seasoning in it. So, but it's pretty, and we're very, very, very much on a budget, Kevin and I. So we're all about the budget friendly foods and keeping it simple. So
we're on a budget too. I mean, we just oftentimes didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, but we always had eggs and milk because we had a cow and we had chickens, and sometimes it was pancakes and eggs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but maybe it would be waffles. And
the waffles are so good. Mom's waffles are amazing. And then we always do, usually on Sunday nights, I'd make a roast chicken for dinner, and then we throw all the bones and the skin in the stock pot, and I make stock. So we're eating off, we pick the chicken, so we're eating off of the meat during the week. I mean, we get between the, just for the 2 of us from a whole chicken, we get a solid four additional meals besides just what we eat. So, and we love soup and adding the ginger and the turmeric. So we're big soup people. We use that stock for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, including cooking rice and quinoa.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's chicken stock. We always make sure that we have stock in the freezer.
Yep.
And in the refrigerator by the gallon.
Yep. A one and done meal.
That's a good
one pan and it's done.
Yep. Okay, what's next?
Okay, let's see. The next thing would be how do you incorporate more nutrient-dense foods on a regular basis, and what foods are your go-tos?
Oh, yeah, and the go-tos. Well, first of all, the nutrient-dense stuff we've already touched on because of using Pluck and good salt, because that's a nutrient.
And ghee, and I mean, ghee is basically like your vitamin A, your vitamin D, your vitamin E, your vitamin K, and
it's all of those good things. And again, for us, it's about making every meal and everything on the plate count nutritionally anyway. I do use the Pluck seasoning, but I also will make pate or something with organ meat. And one of the things that's really easy to do is I've always had the organs ground into, not the liver, but I've had the other organs ground into the flesh meat when we've had animals butchered or we've butchered our own. I still do that. Force of Nature has a ground beef with organ meat blend, which I have purchased a fair amount of, and that's in my freezer too. I do mix it typically with another pound of ground beef because one of my kids all of the kids definitely taste the organ meat and they go, Mom, it's too strong. So I do dilute it a little bit further, but that's a really good way to get more nutrition in. And then of course, when you're doing the fermented foods on the side, you're getting extra nutrition from the fermented foods beyond the basic vegetable itself, while at the same time, you're able to digest the proteins and the fats. So that increases your nutrient absorption even more. So just simple things like a little bit of sauerkraut and an occasional pate or organ meat in the chili or whatever. That's how I get nutrition in. And my go-tos really are soups. And for breakfast, you bought shallots today. So before we leave in the morning, I will make French creamed eggs.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, shallots.
We haven't had that one yet this week.
Only because we didn't have shallots, but we've got them now. So tomorrow morning before we leave for Virginia, we're going to have French creamed eggs with our homemade Dijon mustard as well. Yeah. So anyway, so those are kind of my go-tos. Yeah. And of course, I almost always have bread, sourdough or my artisanal bread. So even though I don't eat that very much, I have it for the rest of the family. So they can just throw together a grilled cheese sandwich because, again, we always have cheese. That's one of the staples. And so one of our family's go-to is a grilled cheese sandwich on sourdough bread. It's simple and it's easy and it's inexpensive and it's fast.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Another good thing.
Yeah. Let's see. How do you get the kids involved in the process?
By getting the kids involved, the kids want to eat the food that I want them to eat. Did you find that to be true growing up?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always fun to go and visit the farms and go to Sonnewald's and stuff like that. Go visit all the places where we got our food. I don't know. That was always like a big excursion, like a big day-long excursion, like every two or 3 weeks. So that was always fun.
All
to
the
get
little
out and
kitties followed me along, and I'd send one to get this and one to get that. So our kids were always involved in obviously the shopping, like we're talking about, whether we're at a farm or we would go to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, to Miller's Natural Foods, a large bulk food store. But we also work together to produce our food. So for most of your years, or all of your years, just about at home, we raised a cow for milk and for beef because she would give us a calf every year. And sometimes we had another calf and another calf. So we raised our own beef on a small plot. We raised our own chickens, both for meat and for eggs. We raised pigs on and off for pork. We have raised ducks and geese. I won't raise geese again for meat because I cannot ever kill another goose. That's another story. But the ducks were easy and the chickens were easy. So we raised almost entirely all of our protein and a large portion of our vegetables because we had a big vegetable garden. And I learned regenerative farming from people like Jerry Brunetti and Joel Salatin and Gary Zimmer and others. So we had really nutritious food coming out of the garden also because the animals went through the garden to do work their magic as well. But you all were always involved in all of those things. From Erin's favorite job was not milking the cow.
Yeah, no, I don't milk the cow.
Yeah. I heard about that one. So she rarely had to do that.
But I did plenty of other things, but milking the cow was not the thing. That was not my thing.
Not yours or Taylor's.
It's not my thing.
Claire, on the other hand, she was fine with it. I did most of the milking. But no, I had the kids out gathering eggs, feeding the chickens, moving the pens, and then in the kitchen, I would have them chopping vegetables. I have a really cute picture that just came to my mind of Lauren when she was about 10, standing at the kitchen counter in our farmhouse kitchen, which was so colorful and bright. And she has on goggles and she has a knife and a cutting board and she's chopping onions. It's such a fun picture. But even from the time the little ones are just able to stand at the counter on a stool, I would give them a butter knife and I'd give them something soft so that they could cut it. If it's hard like an onion, they're going to hurt themselves. But if it's something soft, and even before the counter, they could play with Play-Doh and pretend they were making food. Even that gets kids interested in food. But when they're part of the process, they take ownership.
Yeah, it was just normal. It was like all of those things were normal to us. So it didn't really feel, I mean, obviously we knew that it was different from what our friends were doing, but it didn't bother us at all.
Yeah, because it was just how things were. Yeah, and I'm very pleased because not only did all of the kids grow up to appreciate good food, and they all 9 of them do, but they also grew up to be responsible, hardworking people. Yep. So multiple benefits. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So let's say that you've got the rhythm, you're doing it, you're in it. You're cooking all this healthy food for your family, your kids, but they just aren't into it. They don't want to eat it. So what do you do for like picky eaters?
The first rule of thumb is I'm a parent. I'm not your best friend. And a lot of parents don't get that. No, that can be taken too far. But I'm so glad that we're friends now. But when you were growing up and the other kids were growing up, my first role is not to be your best friend, but to be your parent. Therefore, what I put on the plate is what you are going to eat. I never allowed any of my children to say, I don't want that. And then I'd go make something else for them. And I do know people who do that. And I think it is a shame because you're teaching kids to be picky eaters when you do that. So instead, I suggest to do as I did. And I'm not saying I did everything right because I didn't. I have a lot of regrets and a lot of things I would change if I could. But this, I think I got right. I would always put on the kids' plate what I knew they needed to eat and what I wanted them to eat. And if it was something that they may not particularly like liver pate, or sometimes it was liver and onions, I didn't make, if the kids really didn't like something, I rarely made it, or I didn't expect them always to eat it, but they had to have a little bit. So I would kind of dangle a carrot, especially when it was a new food or a food that I knew they were going to go, I'm not eating that. You guys didn't really do that very much anyway. But it's
we weren't really picky eaters.
But I didn't let you be picky eaters, and that's the point. I didn't allow you to be picky eaters. So even if I just put a small amount of something new on the plate or something that was really good for you, and I wanted you to have it, but you might not really love it, I still would give you a small amount. Maybe it's a teaspoon, maybe it's a tablespoon, but maybe it's a forkful. But what I put on the plate, I expected to be eaten, and I wouldn't mound the plate with stuff. And then you could have seconds of the things that you liked, but at least you had all of the good stuff first. And then if it was something new and something that you might not just easily go for, I'd have some special dessert. And I'd say, when we're done eating and you've eaten everything on your plate, you can have dessert. And I would make sure it was something that you all would really want to have to entice you to eat. But I stuck to my guns on this. And sometimes, we always had other people at our table. We had other kids around all the time. We had families come visit us from all over the place. We had a lot of people, and still do have a lot of people around our table. I had parents actually bring, for instance, one parent brought a package of hot dogs. I'm not going to say the name. The two children would come to our house several times a week, and I won't go into that. Anyway, everything kind of fell on my shoulders, and I was fine with that, but I would make lunch for all of us. And this mom brought a pack of just junky hot dogs and said, these are for my child when he comes over. I almost said it. And that child, I think, actually does appreciate now what I did then, because I don't think that his family follows through closer to us now. But she actually wanted me to feed her child hot dogs instead of what I was feeding everybody else. I wouldn't do it. They went in the freezer, and eventually I gave them to the pigs or the chickens or something. Even when it was kids coming to my table, I might not expect them to chow down on liver and onions. I keep using that as an example. But I still expected them to eat what was put before them. And almost without fail, just by using the same methods that I already described, even kids who came and visited and sat at our table learned to like the foods, or at least eat them, but usually like them. Mm-hmm. And one boy who used to come over often, Blake, he was a picky eater at home, but he'd come to our house often and he'd sit down. And from the start, I said, he didn't like what I was having or what I was serving. And I said, okay, but I still expect you to eat this, and it's not a lot. And when you're done, you can have this, whatever dessert it was. That child would sit down and he'd take a little taste and he'd look around and then he'd take another. He would ask for seconds and thirds. And he started telling his mother, Miss Maureen is the best cook ever. She used to tell me about this. It made me feel, of course, happy. It touched my heart. But I relay that just to say, even when other kids come to your table, you can feed them good food and help to train them to try new things. We had another situation where a family was staying with us for a while, and we were all having our most of our meals together anyway. And the parent hid things in the car outside, and she would go out and bring stuff in for her child and give it to the child like after dinner or before dinner. She never enforced at least try, and so that child grew up to be very picky and only eat a few foods. That's really doing a disservice to your children. So stand up, be the parent, not the friend.
I think too that there's a subconscious thought in our minds that healthy food is bland, like healthy food shouldn't taste good. So sometimes even if parents are preparing what they think is healthy food for their kids, like they're not using butter on their vegetables, they're not using good salt or good seasonings. They're boiling the chicken instead of, baking it in a good butter or ghee or, so there's a subconscious feeling that healthy food does not taste good or is just bland. And that's absolutely not the truth at all. Like God created all these amazing foods, and he created butter, and he created, like he gave us milk and cream and salt. Like salt is so important. Like there's so many verses in the Bible. He talks about Christians were the salt of the earth. And if a salt has lost its flavor, then what good is it? There's quite a few scriptures that talk about salt. So like God didn't intend for us to just like eat like food that doesn't taste good.
The best foods, the very most nutritious best foods are actually the best tasting foods.
Yeah, good, real healthy food, the way that God created tastes delicious.
Yeah.
So if your kids are not used to eating food that has that oomph to it, then eating differently like this, eating this healthy ancestral way can feel really strange, but it's actually really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we need to wrap it up pretty soon. We're at about 45 minutes, but let's do another one or two. So how do you know that the diet and nutrition that our family has been doing for a long time, how do we know that it makes a difference?
And for me, I can see it in your faces and in your body types. Not as much now as when all of you were little, because you grew up on very good food, but not each of you started out with really good food. So the first child or two will take from the babies are not vegans. They'll take from the mother's body what their body needs to grow. I wasn't eating terribly when I was expecting you either, but I certainly wasn't eating well and I had eaten crap for a while too before that. But you turned out healthy and strong.
Yeah, I do have some food allergies that came out, but that could have also been some other stuff. Like I had a really bad staph infection when I was very young and had to go through antibiotics and stuff. So that's still like an ongoing, like for me, that's still like a little bit of my, just a couple of food allergies are still kind of an ongoing thing that I deal with, although it's much, much better than it used to be.
Yeah. And so again, we think that came from pharmaceuticals before I knew better. But looking at all of the faces, especially of the toddlers, but also the infants, I could see where a couple of you on down the line, when I was not eating a lot of animal protein or fat, either of those two things, and certainly not organ meat, that the faces were narrower. And in two cases, two kids had gut issues. One primarily because I ate a lot of soy when I was pregnant with him. And the other because we had a wonderful bout of salmonella poisoning, my fault, when she was an infant, and it caused her gut damage. And it took me most of a year to get that figured out. But all that to say, those two kids did not absorb the nutrition as they should have once we were eating really well. And so their faces are narrower, and their teeth. The Dr. Weston A. Price looked at teeth first. That's really the window into the whole body.
Yeah.
And those children had narrow palates and crowded teeth. But everybody else, I was eating butter, I was eating red meat, and I was eating chicken when you were little. And the same with Taylor, although then I did low fat for a while. So that made a difference in the children and their faces and their overall health.
Also, I have only ever had one cavity, and I didn't have that until I was about 30 years old. So yeah, looking back on that, like, I'm really thankful for, eating so well.
Yeah. And your brother, when he was off to college, they forced him to have the meal ticket for the college cafeteria, and his teeth have a lot of problems because of that. He grew up eating wonderful food, just like the rest of you. And he had, like most of you, a wide palate and beautiful. I mean, he's like handsome. But 2 years of college eating cafeteria food, and his teeth crumbled. So he's had a lot of issues. But even in my own person, I grew up eating crap. I grew up on tuna helper, macaroni and Kraft macaroni and cheese, turkey burgers in the microwave. My mother was very fat phobic, and most of our foods came from packages. I have so many cavities. And I'm actually having a lot of serious dental issues. And I've had some health problems, especially thyroid and adrenal, that I know are related to my diet and very poor nutrition for the first 20 years of my life anyway. My mother learned about Dr. Price and his research when I was probably 35 or 40 years old. And so then she started to make some changes, and she and my father's diet. But man, when we were kids, our food was nutrient deficient for sure. We had fake butter. We had white pasta. We had whole wheat bread that wasn't whole wheat at all. And then all of those packaged things. So I can see it in my own person because I grew up on a nutrient deficient diet. You guys grew up on a very nutrient dense diet, but you just didn't all start out that way. So we can see those differences. I can see the difference in each of the children as I go back and remembering what I was eating and what I was doing with each pregnancy. And the worst pregnancies were also the ones where I was eating very little animal protein and very little fat. And I felt like a dirty, wrung out dish rag that you had to peel me off the sofa because I just felt horrible. And a lot of people feel that way now when they're pregnant. We need good food in our diet and nutrients to build strong, healthy bodies, both preconception, during pregnancy, and as we're growing, even into adulthood.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's just do one more. And this one's going to be, tell us one story of a meal where you blew it and it was a disaster.
I have two stories, but I'm only going to tell one. On the panel at Wise Traditions, I told the freezer clean out story. You can listen to that there on the Wise Traditions podcast. But I'll tell you the other one. My in-laws grew up in Havana, Cuba. And one year I had you kids do a project where I had you interview both of the grandparents or all of the grandparents. I guess my parents were alive too at the time, about things about their childhood. One of the questions was, what was your favorite food growing up? Do you remember what Grandma Chris's was?
No, I don't.
Brain fritters. I said, the question I think specifically was, what food do you miss the most from when you were growing up? And she said, brain fritters. Now, I'd been eating sweetbreads and liver and heart and all of that, but I had never had brain. I went to dinner at a friend's restaurant it was a very high-end restaurant, and I did have sweetbreads and I think I did have brain something, but I had never cooked it. So I went to the abattoir and I got a calf's brain and I looked it up. We were making brain fritters for Grandma.
I must not have I must have been out of the house at that time because I don't
Maybe so,
remember
because it was
this.
Claire who was actually helping me make it.
Yeah.
Claire's adventurous.
Yeah. I've been out of the house for a long time. So there's still things I
Well,
miss.
let me tell you, this should have been a really good meal. It was the worst stuff ever. It was slimy and like this. I was trying not to use regular breadcrumbs. So I don't know what I used, but what I was trying to make it well, and I totally ruined it. Nobody could eat it. Nobody could eat it. So that was a total fail. And I haven't tried it again, actually. Tongue I've done several times, and
Which was surprisingly very good.
yeah, I do like tongue. I like tongue a lot. Brains, I will eat them again. And I ate them then. I've eaten them since. I just have not made them again because that was a total failure. So also the freezer clean out soup. That
one was bad. My recent failure I decided I used to make sourdough. I always made sourdough bread. I made the kombucha and I made the sourdough bread when I was a teenager. And since I have a gluten allergy, I just don't ever make bread. I don't really bake. And so Kevin was like, are you thinking about making sourdough bread? So I got into this, like, maybe I'm going to make sourdough bread again, kick this summer. And I was not successful. It's pretty bad.
We just brought home a new sourdough starter for
we're gonna
yesterday.
try it again, but
I have bread rising right now.
Yeah, my attempts at it this summer have not turned out very well. So
that's okay.
We didn't finish that loaf of bread.
Not all of my early attempts at bread making worked either, like the potato bread. Oh, that was gross. And I took it to a shared meal and that was gross. No, it doesn't always work out, but you learn from your mistakes and you go forward. You don't quit. You just learn and go on. So that's what we do.
I think I did last year have a batch of bone broth that I made that I think I put too much apple cider vinegar in when I was making the broth. And so when I was done with it and I was jarring it up, like it had like a very strange, like sour smell because of the vinegar. But of course I was like, well, I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to use it. But then I think I accidentally gave it, because I'm always giving my friends jars of broth, and I'm pretty sure that I gave it to somebody. And I was like, how did you like it? And she was like, it was interesting.
Oh man, should probably give her another one. So
I think I gave her two, and I think she had one good one and she had one of the weird ones. So
Well,
so
quick
note to self, always label your bone broth in case you have like a weird batch.
Yeah, actually I do usually date mine just so I know also. But one quick final story about food. We used to butcher our own chickens, of course. And so I was used to using the chicken feet in my stock. And I was intrigued with the idea of using the heads. I knew a lot of people around the world, and some of my friends use the chicken heads in the stock too. And I thought, I really want to do that, but I'm just not sure. Well, one batch of chickens one summer, I just did not have time to butcher. So I had a Mennonite friend who would butcher for people, and I took them to her. When I went to pick them up, she said, I wasn't sure if you wanted the heads on or not, so I just left them. And I laughed and I said, okay, well, I've been wanting to try, blah, blah, blah. So I go home and I'm going to make another batch of chicken stock with these chickens. And I put them head down in the stock pot so that the children wouldn't see the heads. And they're on the stove, they're simmering. And I think I'm so clever. I'm not. I went on Facebook and I was typing up about my little experiment. And I said, do you think the kids will notice? One of the kids, I didn't know it, was standing right behind me looking over my shoulder. Claire. Mom, I am not eating that. No way. Well, I said, shh, don't tell anybody, but you're eating it because it's what we're having. See, the mean mom that's going to make you eat what I make. I said, please don't tell your brothers and sisters. Well, she told everybody and they all did the same thing. But guess what? Everybody ate it and it was good. But I didn't do chicken heads after that.
No. Chicken feet are good though. They're
chicken feet are definitely good.
They're very good for you.
I keep them in my freezer to throw them in the pot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We should probably end it here because we've been gabbing for a while. And tomorrow I'm gonna go back to Virginia with Mom, and we're gonna do the Homesteaders of America Women's Retreat this coming weekend. So if you're gonna be there, come and say hello. We're really excited.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready for cold weather yet, so I don't know what
It's a little colder there.
I'm still wearing my sandals because I just can't help it. But
sandals at Polyface Farm, and if it rains, wow, watch out.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me see. I'm so sorry. It looks like we actually have some comments that didn't pop up on our thing. But where can you find Pluck? So I put a link. I put a link in the description so you can find Pluck there. And then that helps us out a little bit if you end up purchasing, because they're one of our favorite companies. We just love them. And so they are one of our sponsors. So I put the link in the comments, and then let's see, someone asked if we're using microgreens. Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. My friend Mallory from Barefoot Microgreens teaches people how to grow microgreens. Mm-hmm. I do use microgreens some, but not as much as I want to or intend to. So they're a really cool thing, good thing.
Let me see if I can find the link for you. And I'll pop it here in the comment.
Yeah, Barefoot Microgreens.
Might not have come out. Hold on. I'll have to find it for you, and I'll put it in the caption so you can find it. But it's a really fun company.
Yeah, good people. Mm-hmm. We have lots of good people around us. So yes, microgreens are really good to use in salad, and you can saute and whatever. I have not used them enough. So
I do feel like microgreens is one thing that I can grow in my condo actually. So yeah, we just saw them a couple of weeks ago at the Weston Price conference, and if I could have carried the kit home, I would have, but I didn't have any room in my suitcase. But they have like a whole kit to get you started with everything that you need. And then they have like a subscription service where they'll send you like once a month or every 2 or 3 months, whatever you want. They'll send you like new packs of seeds. So they have,
I think that they are seeds that they propagate themselves.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So they have several different kinds, but they have lots of resources on their website, lots of videos and how-tos and stuff. And that is a good one to grow when you don't have a garden or, space necessarily outside.
Yeah, so that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I do just briefly want to interject the other question that I think is important to quickly answer is secret tools of the trade, our favorite kitchen appliances. And I have 3.
Oh, yeah.
They are Vitamix, food processor, and I blew through Cuisinarts. So I have a Hohem. I think we have a link for it. I'm not sure, but I really like it. I didn't want to buy Chinese, but I did. And it has held up. It takes a beating. So the Vitamix, the food processor, and my favorite is the immersion blender. Mm-hmm. I would not be without any 3 of those appliances, but if I could only pick one, it would be the immersion blender, the KitchenAid.
Mm-hmm. We're getting ready to use it. We're gonna go film some classes on making condiments. So
Yeah.
we're about to use it here before
in just a few
in
minutes.
just a little bit after we get off here. So
Yeah, we're going to
stay
film
tuned.
fermented condiments, which will include Worcestershire sauce,
Mhm.
Dijon mustard, yellow mustard,
mayonnaise,
ketchup, salad dressing, barbecue sauce.
sauce.
And I'm teaching several different ways how to build a salad dressing from the table up, not the ground up.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing that we're going to do next. And the immersion blender is going to be heavily used in that.
Yes. You don't have to have one for that, but it's a great tool to
Yeah,
have when you're doing
really
this.
good tool.
So yay, this was fun. We got to do it together.
Yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
definitely fun. And we were going to be with Sophie next week, but now we're
Oh,
not.
yeah, now we're not.
I'm headed to Maine next week to lay the groundwork for a really super exciting luxury retreat in Lubec, Maine, coming in late June of next year. So you can be watching out for that, but it's going to be relaxing. It's going to be delicious. We're going to go pick fresh lobster from the wharf. We're going to go whale watching, have dinner at a beautiful, wonderful local foods restaurant in town. And we're going to cook together, paint together, and relax together, play games, watch a movie, and watch the ocean because we'll be on our own private spot. Anyway, so that's where I'm headed for next week, and we'll give you more details about that. And also save April 19th through 21st for our next conference titled or themed God-Given Food as Medicine. We have a variety of really interesting and expert speakers. So
yeah, we're really excited about that. That's going to
Yeah.
be fun. We've been busy working on that one. So
yeah,
Mhm.
really excited about that. So stay tuned, and we will see you next week. I think we'll probably be talking about salt next week. So, yep.
Thanks,
All right.
guys. Bye.
Bye.